If you guys are tired of your pop-ups looking like this, generic, boring, crappy, low converting pop-ups that is not capturing enough emails for your brand, then watch this video because I'm going to show you how we can turn a pretty generic looking pop-up from this to something a lot more exciting like this one right here. I'm going to walk you through step by step how I actually designed this within Figma, all of the little technical tools that you can use, and then also more importantly, actually how to take this and then essentially put it into Klaviyo and turn it into like this. And then I'm also going to be covering some behavioral best practices that you should be doing to your email pop-ups so that you can get conversion rates of anywhere from 5 to 15%. So if you're wondering why am I qualified to even show you how to do this? Well, it's because, my friend, we have done over 30 million in revenue in the D2C space with emails and SMS alone. And if you want to work with my agency, that's why I'm making this video, book in a call with me in the description below. We're going to absolutely kill it for you. So the reason why I've kept this design fairly simple, and you know, you can get as advanced as doing something like this. Basically, this really simplistic design follows a lot of the best practice, but also highlights a lot of the techniques that basically just people don't know about, right? So I want to show you the techniques so that you can get creative on your own and build something that looks basically a lot more advanced, like stuff like this. So let's dive into it. Well, first of all, within Klaviyo, you got to be creating the frame first. And I recommend you design your desktop pop-up along with your mobile pop-up completely separately because of aspect ratios. So how you want to lay it out first of all is if you're designing a desktop pop-up like this one right here, what you're going to want to do is you're going to want to start off by creating a frame, and I'm going to design it side by side to show you exactly how to just basically duplicate this design. Okay, so right now you only have the frame, okay? And by default, when you create frames in Figma, it should have a color assigned. With this color, you want to first of all set it to the background transparent, and you do this by going to fill, right? And then you put 0%. Reason why you want to do that is you want to be able to create cool effects like this that really kind of stand out. So you can see that if this was on your website, only the faces would be showing, the background is transparent and therefore jumps out a lot more at you. Once you set the transparent background, you got to be configuring the width. So the width is the most important part, the height not so much, right? So with width, in this case, I'm using 500 pixels. The reason why the width is so important is because if you go into edit form, you go into styles, you need to make sure that the form style, like the width of it, you select custom, it's the same exact width as your pop-up here. Otherwise, from a cropping perspective, it might look stretched if you try to upload it as an image, etc. So make sure that this number corresponds with this number. And in terms of how to even get to this stage, instead of using a template, what you're going to want to do is you're going to want to go into Klaviyo. You're going to want to hit build from scratch. You're going to select pop-up and name it whatever. So it could be like 10% off desktop, for example. What's going to happen is it's going to come to something that looks like this. Let's just call it desktop 10%, right? Connect it to a list, test import, boom. The default template will look like this, but don't worry, I'm going to show you how to turn it from this to looking something like this. So first of all, let's focus on designing the actual design itself. So what you're going to want to do is you're going to want to start by building the templates. So the first thing you always need is some sort of background. So the background needs to be dragged into the frame, and how you would build this normally is you would literally just select the shape, you draw the rectangle inside the frame, and you're basically good to go. In terms of getting the round edges, what you're going to want to do is you just want to go in here and type in like, I don't know, 10 or whatever, right? To get the round edges if you want. There's also other things that you can experiment with in terms of having like jagged edges, but obviously I'm not a graphic designer. I don't want to get into like such complex stuff, right? Because I don't know shit about design. So once this is done, you're going to see that, you know, you have the background and this is basically the foundations. In terms of text, we always like to do text within Figma. Reason being is because you can actually use your custom fonts. Because for example, if you go into here, right, in Klaviyo, you are very limited with the number of fonts that you can actually use. Of course, you can add your own fonts, but obviously that requires you to import fonts, which probably is a completely different video. And the downside about importing fonts is you can't use it in everywhere. So yeah, we don't really like to import fonts. In terms of that, just get whatever text you want on here. The reason why I wrote, did you know you can get 10% off? It's kind of like, it's very conversational. But generally speaking, in terms of copy, biggest mistake I see brands making is that they make the copy way too long. So they try to get too descriptive about the benefits of the product and why it's basically just a highlight reel of all the USPs. And the problem is that's not what the pop-up is designed to do. The pop-up is designed to sell them on the newsletter, not the actual products, right? So that's why we see the best results when we just put the simplest, cleanest copy, like get 10% even, right? You can even remove the off. I just included it for like aesthetics sake, basically. So text-wise, it's very simple, you know, just do it like insert it like a regular text box. So you would literally just hit type and then you would write like, did you know you can? And then obviously font sizes, you can configure it to however you like. In which case, in here, I'm using 2 fonts and 2 different font sizes. Obviously, the way I do that is basically I have 2 text blocks and I just group them together. So if you see that, it's literally like separated text blocks, right? So you can use custom fonts, basically. Once you regroup it, what I like to do always is basically just insert this element myself, okay? This is not the element that you're gonna use within Klaviyo, because obviously the button is a dynamic thing, and same thing with the email input. I just like to have this here as a general guideline from like a sizing perspective, just so I know how much space I need to account for. So the way I basically did it in terms of a redesign from this to this was I looked at all of the colors that was on here, replicated the same offer, picked some better creatives, and overall just made it look slightly nicer. So once this is done, right, you're gonna want to insert the image. So in terms of imagery, you can kind of go down several ways. I like the whole removing of the background thing because, for example, the way I picked out this piece of creative was I went on their website, this brand, you can see that if I open the image in a new tab, the image looks like this, right? Obviously, you know, if I just put this in here, it's gonna look freaking terrible, right? You can see like this just looks awkward as heck, right? This doesn't look nice. Technically, you could just round the edges, like make this 100 or maybe 500. And then you can see that it's round, but obviously with the background, it looks a bit weird. You know what I mean? If you want to remove the background, the best way to go about doing this is just hit copy whatever image you want to use and then go to remove.bg. This is a free background remover, super easy to use. You paste it in here and in 5 seconds, it's literally going to spit out a photo with the background removed. You can do this with products, animals, people. It really does not matter. It's a fantastic tool. So when you get this, you can just hit copy image, take it back to Figma, delete this one. Then you're going to want to put the edge on. So in terms of edge, I'd probably put like 500 or something. You basically just want to put an edge that guarantees that it's big enough to make a circle. It rounds the corner to the point where it's like bigger than the entire image, right? So once it's a circle, you can kind of resize it, play around with it, etc. And this is the kind of vibe that I'm going for. Some things that you can do, just make sure you watch out for alignment. So for example, when I was doing this example, you can see that the alignment of the shoulders look kind of weird. It's these kind of really small details that make or break the aesthetic. So you can see this looks a lot better, and the way you can kind of fix it is by just like extending this a little bit, for example, and then, you know, dragging it up here. So now you can see that it's basically shaping up to look quite nice. You can add a little bit more padding, etc. Now, how do you actually get from this to a functioning pop-up form within Klaviyo? So the first thing that we got to do is you're going to want to go into styles, okay? And then in styles, you're going to want to select the background color and you want to make that completely transparent, because we're going to be uploading the image here, and basically the background is going to be based on the buttons, and you're going to pick the background color and everywhere else except the actual background itself. So obviously, because we already did the text, you want to delete the text blocks. The only blocks that you're going to want to keep is the email address and the subscribe button. Okay, so in terms of the label, you don't need a label. Property, email, that's fine. Subscribe button, this looks good. The thing that you got to make sure to watch out for is the list needs to be connected to your welcome series or whatever the right list is. So once this is pretty much done, we can leave it for now and we can go back to styles. Remember the whole minimum height thing, right? So by default, it goes to medium. You want to put custom, and in terms of width, you're going to want to put 500 or whatever the number is for your frame. So once this is done, you can see that you have something that looks along the lines of this. Now, how do you actually upload the images? So first of all, you're going to use a tool called Slice. So you're going to go into Figma and you're going to go into Slice and you're going to create a slice inside the frame. So I would probably crop it to about like here, right? Make sure there's like enough space and everything. That's going to be slice 1. And then slice 2, you're going to create another slice at the bottom. The reason why the slice at the bottom is so important is because you see here, if I were to delete this image block, you can see that it suddenly looks really weird, right? You have these nice rounded corners at the top, and then it's just a straight 90 degrees angle at the bottom, right? It looks terrible. So what you're gonna wanna do is, in terms of blocks, you're gonna wanna add an image block right above here, and you're gonna wanna add another image block. Once these 2 blocks are added, you're going to want to configure the image, and how you want to export this is you're going to want to export slice 1, right? You're going to want to hit export, and when you are exporting, this is super, super important. You're going to want to click the plus button, and you're going to want to export it at 2x or even 3x, 4x. It doesn't really matter. You just want to make sure the file size is not too big, and you want to export it as PNG. I'm going to show you what happens if you export at 1x and it doesn't look pretty. Right? So if you exported it at 1x, what's going to happen is you can see that the number of pixel here is 1000. That's because we exported it at 2x. At 1x, this is what it looks like. You can see, yes, it's 500 pixels, but like if you look really, really closely, you can see that the quality kind of sucks ass, right? So when you upload this, you're going to want to make sure to upload the 2x variant and make sure that it's a PNG. So you upload this, boom. Oh my God, why does it not look like the design Boyan? The fuck is happening? So I'm going to show you why. So you're going to want to change the width to 500, and you can see that there's a bit of space, right? You just want to make sure that there's no padding. So remove all the padding right here. And you can see this is, you know, it looks basically pretty good at this point. It's starting to kind of shape up a little better. What you're going to want to do is start customizing the actual email input fields as well. So you can see that there's more padding. So you're going to want to remove the padding, remove the padding, remove the padding. And then in terms of background color, you're going to want to set it to the same background color as this. What you would do here is you just want to click into here, test the fill, copy it, and then you're going to want to paste the hex code of it right into here. Now you can see this looks really off, right? And the reason why it looks super weird right now is because we haven't actually set any padding. You set the background color, boom, and you're basically good to go. And then in the bottom, you're going to see that you're going to add slice number 2. So how you get that slice number 2 is obviously you go to here, and then you find your second slice. For me, it's going to be slice 4. Yep. And then you're going to want to hit export. Now, again, you're going to want to export it at 2x. So once that's done, you can see that this is really small again. You just make the width 500. You remove the padding. Just put 0, 0, 0. It's kind of starting to look a lot better, right? So the only thing that's kind of missing is in our design earlier, there's padding on the side, padding in between the button and the email input, and the colors are a lot nicer. So how do you actually make the button color the same as well as shorten the actual buttons and inputs? Let's do the input box first. Here, you're gonna wanna add some padding, right? So bottom, you might wanna add like 10. And then from here, this is the important part, right? You wanna make sure that it's like 50. So you wanna make it so that there's plenty of space for people to put in their email addresses, but enough also like padding on the side so that it doesn't look like it's super stretched. In terms of buttons, you can change the fonts here and play around with the font sizes, obviously. And in terms of the text, you can put something simple like unlock offer, give me my discount, or I want this, something generic, right? Generic CTA type of button text. And in terms of the color, you can simply go to the color that you want to use or go to your brand book, identify the hex code, change it on here, and you're good to go, right? And in terms of padding, obviously, again, 50 and 50 as well. So now it's looking good, right? I don't think there's anything else that's kind of like missing or anything. Maybe the padding between here is a bit too much, so, you know, I can go back in and modify this. So this is looking pretty nice. What would actually make this a super high converting pop-up form? Well, it has to do with behavior. So a big mistake that people make when it comes to pop-ups is they keep their desktop and mobile in one pop-up. You can do this, but it's just not best practice. So in terms of devices, you're going to want to hit show on, let's say, mobile only, which this doesn't look bad, but if I was designing this for mobile, I'd definitely make it a lot bigger and make the fonts and stuff like that a lot bigger as well. Show on desktop, boom. And then make sure this is checked. This is going to be checked by default, so it's fine. And in terms of don't show on certain URLs, so for example, you can hide the checkout pages, the cart pages, and anything that you just don't, for example, like quiz pages, if you guys run like a quiz funnel on your site, that's really important. But obviously for this example, there's not going to be any exclusions. You can also exclude based on IP. Don't worry too much about that. I don't recommend getting to that too much unless you rely on organic traffic exclusively and you're trying to avoid capturing emails from countries that you don't actually ship to. In terms of the display timing, this is actually the most important one. Show based on rules, you got to make sure to tick this. And on desktop, you can either select this or you can select, let's say, like a time delay, or you can do a scroll delay. Either or works. In terms of scroll delay, I'd like to do generally like 50% and up, right? Show after scroll delay. And if you want a time delay, you know, anywhere from 6 to 12 seconds works really, really well. That's it in terms of behavior. Do not show it on load because that's going to distract people from actually browsing the website. You want to show them when they actually have a bit more intention to stay on the website. Make sure one of these things are checked. You can even do exit, but exit is kind of like a slightly different type of pop-up. And once you're happy with the design, the behaviors are configured, you're basically good to launch, right? Obviously make sure to modify the success page using all of the techniques that I showed you earlier on, and you can just push this live and you're gonna have a really high converting pop-up form. If you like this video, obviously you should book in a call with me if you're an ecom brand. We're gonna absolutely crush it for you. So yeah, hope you enjoyed. I'll see you in the next one.